Hey everybody, Akash Inti here with a video on communication basics. Today we talk about listening. And what does this mean, first off, because must start there. Actually, even before we go there, we'll start a little bit even ahead, thinking about why is it important to discuss this topic. So the topic of listening is important, and it's a fundamental of communication because it's our way of really being able to relate to another person and really take in what they're presenting to us. By listening, we have the ability to experience the world through someone else's experience, and it enables us to connect with them, or for them to have a feeling of connecting with us. Today, we're going to go over a couple of things in terms of there's different levels to listening itself, and what is the best level to listen at. So with this, there are 5 levels to listening. The first one, and we'll go through this a little bit together, and I'll give some examples of each of these levels and how to bring more awareness to the level of listening that you use when you're engaging with the world. At certain times, you will want to use higher or lower levels of listening, depending on who your audience is. So remember that we can use these strategically. With that, the first one is ignoring. So it's someone talking, your person, the person who you're engaging with in communication, starts talking to you, and you don't even give them any level of response. You're not paying attention to them. Your eyes are, maybe you're typing at your computer. You've got headphones in. You could be maybe you're cooking or something like that. You're simply not paying attention to them at all. You're ignoring them. There is no attention going towards them. This is the base level of listening. And you'd be like, well, how could that be the base level of listening? It could be the base level of listening because no listening is occurring. So there you are. So absence of attention. This is level number 1. Level number 2 is pretending. Now, I'm sure everyone has experienced the idea of pretending to listen to someone. Maybe your family member is talking to you while you're cooking dinner, and as they're talking to you, you're like, yeah, 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 oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of the idea of that you're acting as if you're listening to them, but all you're really doing is you're like, I just want them to continue. I just want them to say their piece, so they're done and they're stopped talking. They stopped talking, so I don't have to engage with them. That would be the concept of pretending. This is just a step up from ignoring, but pretty low in terms of the listening hierarchy. The third level to listening is that of selective listening. So this is where you are kind of tuning in and out. So again, going back to the example of you're cooking dinner, your family members telling you a story about something that happened in their day, and as they're telling you the story, you're picking up little bits and pieces. So they'll be like, "Yeah, and as I was walking through, this is kind of what it would sound like in your head. Might be walking subway, book, interesting person, guy, and you don't really hear the whole story. All you're hearing is just words here and there, and you hear that word, and you might think of an idea. You might be like, "Oh yeah, I remember I was in the subway the other day, blah blah blah," and then you were like, "Oh shoot, I wasn't paying attention." So then you pay attention again. You're like, and you heard interesting, and you're like, "Oh yeah, interesting." So it's the idea of you're going in and out. You're not really paying attention fully. The fourth level of listening, as we outlay it, is attentive listening. So this is where you're again going back to the experience of you're cooking dinner, your family member is trying to talk to you about their day. It's the idea that you're giving your full attention to someone. So they're like, yeah, well, I got on my way back from work. I took the subway, and as I took the subway, I was on my way towards Chelsea, for example, and in Chelsea, I saw this interesting book on the subway. The book made me think of another book that I was reading, and it related to me because that other book was really, it captured an essence in my life where I was like, whoa, I haven't felt this way in a while. Now, attentive listening would be hearing all of those words, but processing it from a very mental place. It's missing the subtleties to communication. So it's missing the idea of that, like, that book made me feel something, and it could have been like, yeah, that book made me feel something. It's not. It's You can hear all of the words that I'm saying, and you could be conscious of it, but it lacks the attention to the feelings or the emotion that is being conveyed in the voice, in the face, in the body language, in the beingness. So this is the fourth level of listening, attentive listening. Finally, this brings us to our last level of listening, our highest level of listening, level number 5, empathic listening. Empathic listening is listening with the whole self, being conscious of the words that are being said intellectually, but then also being conscious of how our nervous system is responding to the communication itself. It's listening with our eyes, with our hearts, with our guts, with our balls, with our spirits. Our whole beingness listens and hears what is being said. This is the highest level of listening. So again, going back to the example that I mentioned with the story of your cooking and your family members telling you a story about how their day was. So you're cooking and your family was like, yeah, I remember I just got off the subway. And when I got off the subway, I was kind of feeling this anger of how it was like, I haven't seen this book that I've been looking for. And it's just been frustrating me. And then all of a sudden, this interesting man comes out of nowhere and he starts telling me a story of yoga and how important it was to him, and it really meant something to me because in those moments I found serenity and peace and enlightenment. Now, if you're really listening at the empathic level, you would be aware of all of the different emotions that took place in that story. You would feel the sense of anger in that moment. You would be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what it's like. And again, this is a very bare bones example. I kind of came up with the story. Nonetheless, it's to convey the same points though of listening with your whole attention, with your eyes, your ears, your heart, all of your body and your beingness. Now, it's important to note that you don't necessarily need to give empathic listening to everyone. I would say the levels of listening are hierarchical in the sense of the relationships that you have with people. In other words, there's a stranger on the street. I'm not going to just be like, uh-huh, uh-huh, no way. I mean, it could be, but that's not understanding hierarchy. That's not understanding the hierarchy of your own life and how important it is to treat people who are closest to you and give them more attention than those who have never been in your life. Why would you give them attention? That's a disrespect of hierarchy, and it's a disrespect of yourself because that shows that, well, other people are more important than you. Very, very important to be aware of this. So coming back to, you choose the level of listening that you want to give to those around you. I reserve empathic listening really for those who are either very close to me, in terms of relationships, personal, girlfriends, family. I would also reserve it for people who are clients, so people who pay me money. And that's probably about it. That's kind of my level of empathic listening for depending. Um, there's attentive listening, so this is like people who are like kind of acquaintances maybe. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, okay, cool." It's just becoming aware of what type of level of listening you want to use with the people in your life. The best, in my opinion, the best way is to kind of follow the hierarchy in terms of the way your life goes. So we're also aware that we have circles of influence. So you have the people that you see every day, and there's maybe a couple of these like that they're very close to you. You can tell them anything, usually significant other, family member, some such thing. And then there's levels that kind of, as you go out and out and out, it's like you give them less of who you truly are, or you give them less of what's going on in here. And so I encourage you to use these levels of listening and give those levels of listening to those who are in the respective hierarchy to you. So those in your immediate circle, I would encourage you to really practice empathic listening as much as possible. And those in your strangers and such, I'm not saying necessarily ignore them all the time, but be conscious and aware of what level of listening you choose to give them. If you choose to ignore every single person that you've never encountered and everyone is a stranger, then you're never going to make new friends. You're never going to expand that circle, or you're never going to change your circles because they're always constantly in flux as well. So I leave you with this today. We are learning about listening. So remember, level up your listening skills. Lastly, I would just want to leave on the note of that as your attention rises, the more attention you give to something, like if you really focus in on maybe what I'm saying right now, you're like, what is he saying? This is incredible. You'd be able to feel, you could really, if you're practicing at the empathic listening level, you would be able to feel within your body the way I feel right now as I'm speaking to you. In other words, the way that I'm talking to you, you would get that feeling with within your body. It might strike a chord somewhere within you, and you're like, "Whoa, I get that." So I encourage you guys as you level up your more attention and you give more attention, your level of listening increases. Something to be aware of. With that, I leave you. Remember, keep up, thrive, and stay sexy.